Welcome to MystiChrono, where history hides no secrets and every ancient truth is waiting to be revealed. Here, we peel back the layers of time, not merely to observe the past, but to understand its profound and often hidden influence on our present. The chronicles of humanity are filled with empires that rise and fall like the tides, but none have captured the imagination quite so completely, nor left such an indelible mark upon the world as the one we explore today. We journey back to the heart of an empire whose legacy is etched in stone and law, in language, and in conflict. Today, we uncover the hidden side of one of the greatest civilizations the world has ever known, the Roman Empire. We've heard the stories of its emperors and its seemingly endless conquests, the tales of gladiators and the grandeur of the Colosseum. But what if the glory of Rome, so brightly illuminated in our history books, was only half the truth? What if the narratives passed down through millennia were carefully constructed, designed to conceal as much as they revealed? A story of power, yes, but also one of profound and unsettling secrets. Beneath the gleaming marble of its temples, the triumphant arches celebrating its victories, and the legends of its indomitable will, lie shadows. Shadows of betrayal, of occult knowledge whispered in subterranean chambers, and of mysteries that still echo through time, challenging everything we thought we knew. The foundations of this mighty empire are steeped in more than just mortar and ambition. This is Hidden Truths About the Roman Empire. The story of Rome begins not with a charter or a treaty, but with a myth drenched in violence. It is a tale of twin brothers, Romulus and Remus, suckled by a she-wolf, destined for greatness. But this shared destiny was not large enough for two. The legend tells us that Romulus, in a fit of rage over a disputed boundary, struck his brother down. In that single, brutal act of fratricide, the foundation of Rome was laid. The first stone was cemented with a brother's blood, a dark omen for the sprawling empire that would one day spring from this violent soil. This was not merely a crime of passion, it was a foundational sacrifice. This act established a chilling precedent that would ripple through the centuries of Roman existence. Power, from its very inception, was something to be seized, not shared. It was a prize to be won through dominance, ruthlessness, and the elimination of rivals, even those of one's own flesh and blood. The she-wolf, a symbol of primal survival, had nurtured them, but it was human ambition that tore them apart. The city that would one day rule the known world was born from a murder, its destiny forever entangled with the notion that to build something great, something else, or someone else, must first be destroyed. Blood became the currency of Roman power. The Age of Kings could not last. The tyranny of Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, the last king of Rome, ignited a spark of rebellion that would engulf the city. The people, weary of absolute rule and galvanized by the violation of Lucretia, a noblewoman whose tragedy became a rallying cry, rose up. They cast out their monarch and vowed that never again would a single man hold absolute power over Rome. From these ashes of monarchy, a new idea was forged: the Republic, res publica, the public affair. It was a radical promise of shared governance, of liberty, and of a state guided by its citizens through elected officials. But this noble experiment in freedom soon revealed its own vulnerabilities. The promise of a government for the people became a playground for the powerful. The political arena, once envisioned as a forum for civic duty, transformed into a stage for manipulation and personal gain. Ambitious aristocrats, masters of oratory and intrigue, learned to sway the masses with grand speeches while making shadowy deals behind closed doors. The mechanisms of the Republic, the assemblies, the elections, the laws, were not broken, but expertly bent to serve the interests of a select few. The dream of freedom was giving way to a new, more subtle form of control. In public, the Senate of Rome was a council of elders, the wise and steady hand guiding the Republic. Its members, draped in the toga of authority, debated matters of state in the open, their pronouncements shaping the destiny of millions. They were the guardians of Roman tradition, the embodiment of its collective wisdom. But behind the ornate doors of the Curia Hostilia, a very different reality took hold. Here, in the shadows, true power was wielded not with laws, but with whispers. Alliances were forged and broken, fortunes were made and lost, and the fates of generals and kings were decided long before any public decree was issued. This was the hidden government of Rome, The Senate, ostensibly an advisory body, became a web of competing families and factions, each driven by insatiable ambition. They orchestrated wars not always for the security of Rome, but for the acquisition of new lands and wealth that would enrich their own coffers and enhance their family's prestige. They brokered peace treaties that served their intricate political strategies, often sacrificing long-term stability for short-term advantage. Deceit was their language, and conspiracy was their craft. The prosperity and expansion of the Republic were, in many ways, a byproduct of this relentless, clandestine struggle for personal power. The engine of Rome's expansion was its legendary military machine, the legions. More than just an army, the legions were a symbol of Roman order, discipline, and relentless efficiency. Each legionary was a cog in a perfectly synchronized instrument of conquest. Their distinctive rectangular shields, the scutum, locked together to form the impenetrable testudo, or tortoise formation, a moving fortress that shrugged off enemy arrows. Their short stabbing sword, the gladius, was a brutally effective weapon for close-quarters combat. Marching in perfect step across continents, they were the bringers of Pax Romana, the Roman peace. But this peace was always bought with the sword. The legions were unstoppable, a tide of iron and will that swept across Gaul, Iberia, North Africa, and the Near East. Their victories were astonishing, a testament to superior training, engineering, and tactics. Yet, behind this military perfection lay an insatiable hunger. Each conquest only fueled the desire for more land, more resources, more slaves, more glory. The Roman eagle, the aquila that each legion carried as its sacred standard, was not just a symbol of pride, but a bird of prey, constantly seeking its next victim. The expansion was not a phase, it was an addiction. To witness the legacy of Rome is to stand in awe of its engineering prowess. The aqueducts, graceful, monumental structures snaking for miles across the landscape, carried fresh water to teeming cities with a precision that baffles even modern engineers. Their roads, paved with stone, and built to last millennia, formed the arteries of the empire, allowing legions and commerce to move with unprecedented speed. And in the heart of the city, the Colosseum and the Pantheon stand as testaments to their mastery of concrete and architecture, their scale and complexity seemingly beyond the reach of their time. One must ask, how was this possible? The official histories speak of innovation, of brilliant architects, and of an immense workforce. But the sheer leap in technological capability is staggering. Could it be that the Romans were not just innovators, but inheritors? Whispers in ancient texts speak of knowledge passed down from older, forgotten civilizations, perhaps from the Egyptians, the Greeks, or even more ancient lost cultures. The precise formulas for their seemingly indestructible concrete, the advanced surveying techniques for their aqueducts, were these developed in isolation? Or were they rediscovered from a repository of lost ancient technologies, a hidden library of genius? We marvel at the splendor of Rome, the towering monuments, the luxurious villas, the sprawling cities. But this magnificent world was built on a foundation of human suffering. For every senator debating in the forum, for every patrician enjoying a lavish banquet, there were countless slaves whose lives were spent in unrelenting toil. They were the invisible hands that quarried the stone, laid the roads, and erected the temples. They were the ones who worked the vast agricultural estates, the latifundia, that fed the empire and toiled in the dangerous, suffocating conditions of the mines to extract its wealth. These were not merely servants, they were property considered speaking tools under Roman law. Captured in war, kidnapped by pirates, or born into bondage, their existence was one of complete subjugation. They served in every capacity, from domestic servants and tutors to gladiators forced to kill for public entertainment. The glory of Rome, its art, its architecture, its very lifestyle, was inextricably linked to this brutal system. The light of Roman civilization cast a very long and dark shadow, and in that shadow lived millions whose names and stories have been almost entirely erased by the history they were forced to build. While the grand temples to Jupiter, Juno, and Mars dominated the Roman skyline, a different kind of worship flourished in the shadows. Beneath the bustling streets, in hidden cellars, and within secretive fraternities, Romans from every walk of life sought solace and power in cults that promised what the state religion could not: personal salvation, mystical knowledge, and a direct connection to the divine. These were the mystery religions, imported from the far corners of the empire. The cult of Isis from Egypt, the rites of Cybele from Anatolia, and most famously, the deeply secretive cult of Mithras. These clandestine groups offered initiation rituals that were often intense and sometimes terrifying, meant to bring the worshipper face to face with the gods. In underground chambers known as Mithraea, men gathered to partake in communal meals and reenact the cosmic deeds of their bull-slaying god, Mithras. Followers of Isis sought her promise of rebirth and eternal life, a powerful draw in a world of uncertainty and high mortality. These cults operated outside the control of the state, creating parallel spiritual communities with their own hierarchies and forbidden rituals, a hidden network of faith that pulsed with a power the emperors could neither understand nor fully suppress. Rome was a voracious consumer of culture, absorbing art, philosophy, and science from the civilizations it conquered. Its libraries, like the great ones at Alexandria and Pergamum, were repositories of the accumulated wisdom of the ancient world. They housed countless scrolls from Greece, Egypt, and Babylon, containing not just poetry and history, but advanced mathematics, astronomical charts, and esoteric philosophies that bordered on the magical. This was the intellectual treasure of the empire, the software that ran its powerful hardware. But not all knowledge was deemed suitable for public consumption. Emperors and senators, deeply superstitious and wary of any power they could not control, understood the threat posed by certain ideas. Texts on divination, alchemy, and the summoning of spirits were considered dangerous. Histories that contradicted the state-sanctioned narrative were a political liability. There is evidence of systematic suppression and destruction of certain scrolls. The burning of the Library of Alexandria was not one event, but a series of destructions over centuries. How much wisdom was deliberately erased? What secrets of the universe? What alternative histories? What powerful technologies were deemed too dangerous and consigned to the flames? Julius Caesar. The name itself evokes an image of supreme confidence and singular ambition, a military genius, a charismatic leader, a man who defied the Senate and crossed the Rubicon to make himself the master of Rome. His story is often told as one of individual will, a great man shaping history to his design. But what if Caesar, for all his brilliance, was also a pawn in a much larger game? What if his meteoric rise was not entirely his own doing, but was subtly guided by forces operating from the shadows? Consider the possibility of secret elites, powerful banking families, or mystical brotherhoods who saw in Caesar the perfect instrument for their own ends. Perhaps they funded his early political career, provided him with intelligence on his rivals, and used their influence to clear his path. Ancient sources speak of Caesar's deep interest in the occult and his consultation with seers and mystics. Was he merely observing tradition, or was he receiving genuine guidance from those who possessed knowledge of unseen forces? His eventual assassination on the Ides of March, then, becomes not just an act of political desperation by senators, but perhaps the ultimate betrayal. The moment his secret backers decided their tool had become too powerful and needed to be removed. After decades of brutal civil war that left Rome scarred and bleeding, one man emerged to restore order, Augustus. He presented himself not as a king or a dictator, but as the princeps, the first citizen. He ushered in the Pax Romana, an unprecedented era of peace and prosperity. He famously claimed he found Rome a city of brick and left it a city of marble. But this golden age was a carefully constructed illusion, a masterpiece of political theater orchestrated by a master of propaganda. Augustus's peace was built upon a foundation of absolute control. He established the Praetorian Guard, an elite force loyal only to him, stationed within the city itself, a constant, intimidating presence. He created a network of spies and informants to monitor dissent, ensuring that any challenge to his authority was extinguished before it could ignite. He oversaw a vast campaign of censorship, rewriting history to legitimize his rule and erase the reputations of his enemies. Through art, architecture, and poetry, he meticulously crafted his own divine image, linking his family to the gods and presenting his reign not as a political victory, but as the fulfillment of destiny. The peace was real, but the freedom was an illusion. In the annals of Roman military history, there is one story that echoes with an unsettling silence: the fate of the Legio IX Hispana, the Ninth Legion. Around the year 108 AD, this battle-hardened legion of nearly 5,000 men was stationed in Britain tasked with pacifying the fierce tribes of the north, and then, they vanished. The historical record simply stops. There is no official report of a catastrophic defeat, no mention of their disbandment. An entire legion, a formidable instrument of Roman power, seemingly marched off the map and into thin air. What became of them? The most common theory is that they were annihilated by the tribes of Caledonia, modern-day Scotland, a defeat so total and humiliating that Roman authorities chose to erase it from the records. But other, more mysterious possibilities linger. Legends speak of the legion marching into a strange, otherworldly mist from which they never returned. Could they have been victims of something more than a simple ambush? Some have speculated they were reassigned to the east and lost in conflicts there, or even that they deserted en masse. The Eagle Standard of the Ninth has never been found, leaving a haunting question mark at the northern edge of the empire. In the summer of 64 AD, a fire broke out in the merchant area of Rome. It raged for over a week, consuming vast swathes of the city. The historian Tacitus described a scene of utter chaos and despair. When the embers finally cooled, 2/3 of Rome lay in ruins. The official account, written later, blamed the disaster on the Christians, a small and misunderstood sect, providing the Emperor Nero with a convenient scapegoat for a brutal persecution. But many Romans at the time whispered a different name: Nero himself. The emperor had long dreamed of rebuilding Rome in his own image, a grander city he would call Neropolis. The sprawling, chaotic layout of the old city stood in his way. The Great Fire conveniently cleared the very areas he wished to redevelop. Is it possible that the emperor, a man known for his extravagance and cruelty, orchestrated the destruction of his own capital? The theory suggests he sent out agents to start the blaze, and even blocked efforts to fight it effectively. While he played his lyre, not a fiddle, as legend suggests, he may have been watching his sinister masterpiece unfold, a horrific act of urban renewal to make way for his golden palace, the Domus Aurea. Roman medicine was honestly, surprisingly advanced. Roman military surgeons were masters of their craft, performing complex procedures right there on the battlefield. They developed tools for staunching blood flow, extracting arrowheads, and even performing amputations with a pretty notable survival rate. Physicians like Galen conducted detailed anatomical studies, though mostly on animals, that actually formed the basis of Western medicine for over 1,000 years. They understood the importance of sanitation, building public latrines and bathhouses, and even locating army camps away from swamps to avoid what they called bad air. But looking closer at their surgical kits, you find instruments of unsettling precision. Tools that seem almost modern in their design. Delicate scalpels, bone saws, and these strange-looking forceps and probes. So, where did this knowledge come from? Some of these instruments bear a striking resemblance to earlier Egyptian tools, which honestly suggests a continuous but often hidden tradition of medical science. Could it be that the most skilled Roman doctors were actually custodians of a body of knowledge far older and more advanced than we realize? A secret science passed down from master to apprentice, containing techniques and understandings that have sadly since been lost to time. To be Emperor of Rome was to be the most powerful man in the world. It was also perhaps the most dangerous job in the world. The history of the Roman succession is a story written in poison, blood, and betrayal. Of the dozens of men who held the title of emperor, a staggering number met violent ends, assassinated by their own guards, murdered by political rivals, or forced to take their own lives. The throne was not a seat of security, but a target. This deadly intrigue was not confined to the emperor himself. The entire imperial court was a viper's nest of ambition. Wives poisoned husbands to place their sons on the throne. Brothers schemed against brothers. Powerful generals and senators plotted coups, their loyalty as fleeting as the emperor's favor. The Praetorian Guard, created to protect the emperor, became the ultimate kingmakers, assassinating emperors they disliked and auctioning off the throne to the highest bidder. Power in Rome was a lethal game, and the path to the purple robes of the emperor was paved with the bodies of one's predecessors. Deep within the fabric of Roman belief lay a profound respect for prophecy and divination. The most sacred and mysterious of all their oracles were the Sibylline books. According to legend, these were a collection of prophecies written on leaves by the Cumaean Sibyl, a mystical priestess of Apollo. The books were kept in a stone vault beneath the Temple of Jupiter and were consulted only in times of dire national emergency by a special college of priests, and with the Senate's permission. They were said to contain the very destiny of Rome. The contents of these books were one of Rome's most closely guarded secrets. They were said to have predicted civil wars, plagues, and military disasters, offering cryptic ritual remedies to appease the gods. But, what else did they contain? The original collection was destroyed in a fire in 83 BC, and a new collection was assembled from similar oracles across the empire. Some sources hint that these prophecies went far beyond immediate crises, containing visions of the deep future, the fall of the empire, the rise of new religions, and even events that seem to foretell our modern era. Could these ancient seers have glimpsed the entire arc of Western civilization? The reign of Emperor Caligula is remembered as a byword for insanity. History paints him as a deranged tyrant who, appointed his horse as a consul, declared himself a living god, and indulged in every form of cruelty and debauchery. His actions seem to be the very definition of madness. A descent into megalomania that threatened to tear the fabric of the empire apart. He was so universally despised that he was assassinated by his own guards after only 4 years in power, and the Senate actually attempted to have his memory erased from history. But what if his actions were not madness at all? A more unsettling theory proposes that Caligula's bizarre behavior was not random, but part of a calculated, esoteric agenda. His declaration of godhood, his incestuous relationships, and his demand for absolute prostration were not just ego, but perhaps attempts to perform dark and powerful rituals. Some ancient mystery cults believed that by shattering all moral and social taboos, one could achieve a form of apotheosis, or immortality. Was Caligula trying to become a god not through propaganda, like Augustus, but through ritual transgression, a dark path to eternal life that his contemporaries could only interpret as madness? The Romans are known for their practical engineering, not for theoretical or experimental science. Yet, strange artifacts have been unearthed that challenge this view. The most famous is the so-called Baghdad Battery, which is, a clay pot containing a copper cylinder and an iron rod, dating to the Parthian or Sasanian periods but in a region with heavy Roman influence. It bears a striking resemblance to a galvanic cell, capable of producing a small electrical current. While many scholars believe it was used for electroplating jewelry, could its purpose have been something more? This artifact and others like it hint at a forgotten chapter of Roman technological exploration. Whispers in obscure texts mention ever-burning lamps in temples that never went out, and tales of seeing stones or lenses of unusual power. Could pockets of Roman society, perhaps secretive guilds or philosophical schools, have been experimenting with principles we now call electricity, optics, or even acoustics? It's possible that these were not widespread technologies but isolated experiments, the work of lone geniuses or hidden brotherhoods whose discoveries were misunderstood, suppressed, or simply lost in the turmoil of the empire's decline. In its final centuries, the character of the Roman Empire underwent a profound and corrosive transformation. The traditional virtues that had been the bedrock of the Republic, discipline, duty, piety, and moderation, seemed to evaporate, replaced by a culture of extreme decadence and rampant corruption. The ruling class, insulated by immense wealth, indulged in grotesque displays of excess. Lavish multi-day banquets featuring exotic and cruel dishes became commonplace, while the gap between the super-rich and the impoverished masses grew into an unbridgeable chasm. This moral decay permeated every level of society. The political system became entirely transactional, with offices and justice for sale to the highest bidder. The games in the Colosseum grew ever more bloody and spectacular, a brutal distraction for a populace that had lost its political agency and civic pride. The social fabric of the empire was fraying. The relentless pursuit of pleasure, power, and wealth at any cost eroded the foundations of trust and community. Rome was not just being threatened by barbarians at the gates, it was rotting from within. The fall of the Western Roman Empire in 476 AD is traditionally blamed on a confluence of factors: relentless barbarian invasions, political instability, economic collapse, and overexpansion. These were undoubtedly critical pressures that brought the enfeebled giant to its knees. But, recent scientific evidence suggests another powerful catalyst may have been at play, a force not of man, but of the cosmos itself. Ice core samples from Greenland and Antarctica show evidence of a period of extreme and abrupt climate change in the 6th century, shortly after the final collapse. This data points to a massive volcanic eruption, or, more intriguingly, a major solar event, a series of powerful solar storms bombarding the Earth. Such an event could have created a volcanic winter effect, veiling the sun, causing global temperatures to plummet and leading to catastrophic crop failures and widespread famine across the empire. This would have weakened the population, destabilized the economy further, and spurred the mass migration of desperate peoples, the very barbarians who were pressing on Rome's borders. Perhaps the final push that toppled the empire came not from a sword, but from the sun itself. In the year 476 AD, the last Roman emperor of the West was deposed. The eagle had fallen, but did the empire truly die? Or did it merely retreat into the shadows, its spirit preserved by those who refused to let its knowledge perish? While cities crumbled and libraries burned, small scattered groups of secret scholars, monks in isolated monasteries, and hidden fraternities worked tirelessly to preserve the legacy of Rome. They copied ancient texts, preserving law, science, and philosophy through the dark ages that followed. This hidden stream of knowledge flowed beneath the surface of history, re-emerging centuries later to fuel the Renaissance. Rome's legal codes still form the basis of many modern legal systems. Its language, Latin, is the root of many modern tongues. Its engineering principles are still studied and admired. The idea of Rome, of a unified, ordered, and powerful civilization, has haunted the dreams of kings and conquerors ever since. Its spirit, its laws, and its secrets did not vanish. They were carefully guarded, and they continue to shape the world we live in today in ways we are only just beginning to understand. The Roman Empire, a civilization of unmatched brilliance and unspoken darkness. We have walked through its glorious ruins and peered into its deepest shadows, finding a history far more complex and mysterious than the one we were taught. It was a world of marble and blood, of law and conspiracy, of staggering genius and unspeakable cruelty. Its light illuminated the world, but the darkness it cast was just as profound, filled with secrets that continue to challenge our understanding of the past. Its rise and fall, a story that has been told for 2,000 years, still haunts our world. It serves as both an inspiration and a warning. For every truth we think we know about its power, its conquests, and its collapse, there lies another buried beneath centuries of silence, waiting for a curious mind to unearth it. The questions we have explored today are not the end of the journey, but an invitation to look deeper, to question the accepted narratives, and to seek the truths that lie hidden in plain sight. Perhaps the empire never truly vanished. Perhaps it simply fractured, its components, its laws, its ambitions, its secrets, its very spirit, becoming part of the DNA of the civilizations that followed. Perhaps it merely changed its face, its influence still at work in the corridors of power and the foundations of our own society. Thank you for watching, MystiChrono. What's your wine so? Sevratsuri mind that's a bar sir sign that are. History mastery, and the past never sleep.